I want to begin by challenging the premise of our event, that there is, in fact, a battle for control of the Texas House. I remembered this quote. I went back and checked that I was remembering correctly. In May of last year, the governor's political consultant, Dave Carney, told Jonathan Tylov of the Austin American-Statesman, quote, "There is no chance that the Democrats take the House in 2020. So let me ask you if you agree. Is there even a battle for the control of the majority worth discussing today, or should we just send everybody out of here, Representative Goldman? Is there, in fact, a fight for control of the majority?
Well, anytime 150 people are on the ballot, there's a battle for control.
Yeah, but nobody thought in 2016, nobody really thought that the Democrats would take back control of the House. I'm not even sure people thought in 2018 that the Democrats would take back control.
Well, that's true, but look, just like my race, anytime you have an opponent on the ballot, you have to take them seriously.
Right.
So there's no question that every single Republican I know who's on the ballot this time, whether it's in the primary or in the general, is taking their race seriously.
Yeah. So you acknowledge that at least there's a fight being waged, whether or not you think it will turn out for your side or the other side.
Anytime you have an opponent against you, there's a fight being waged, and you have to protect your seat.
Representative Israel, this is really the first time since you've been in the legislature where there is more than a 0% chance, right? Dave Carney notwithstanding, that you all come back in January in control of the House.
There's, it's palpable in rooms that I'm in, but now I'm wearing a chair's assignment, so everyone that I talk to is very excited. The energy level is up. Every progressive organization that the caucus works with has upped their game. And we're having a forum here on Congress Avenue about the topic, so I think somebody at the Tribune might think that this is a worthwhile topic.
Well, I can do math. You know, I always say I went into journalism not to do math, but maybe I can say I can count. And I know that what you need is a net 9 seats, right? It's 83-67 this time. It was 95-55 before the last election. So all you need is a net pickup of 9. You hold all yours, you take 9 of theirs, you're back in the majority. It's tough math to pull off. Put a percentage likelihood on it as you sit here today on February the 11th. Is it 1 in 5? Is it 1 in 4? How would you quantify your chances of actually pulling this off? Representative Israel.
I don't know that I can quantify my chances. I can quantify our heart, and I can tell you that there's people block walking now. They've been block walking since last fall.
Right.
And that's an indicator to me. They've been raising the funds that they need, and the Democratic Caucus has been organizing in the way that it needs to with all of its allies.
Right.
Trying to be as organized as Democrats can be.
So you're working it and you're motivated.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what the future holds, Evan. This is going to be a long year, but I do know that everyone in the candidates are doing what they need to do, which is that methodical, raise money, knock on doors, raise money, knock on doors. It's not going to change.
You prepared to predict that you're going to do this, that you're going to win back the majority?
I'm prepared to predict that we're going to bring our A game and we're going to go toe-to-toe, and there's going to be real general elections. And I think that's a good thing for the state.
So you're going to be in the fight?
Yeah.
Representative Goldman, you have a different view of this.
My view is this. There's no question that there were some people sleeping last cycle. And there was no question that there were some surprises last cycle. I mean, I spoke to a member in the Democrat caucus on the floor of last session, and they were shocked to be there. They didn't expect to win. In fact, they said they can't afford to be there.
Right, they didn't look up the salary before they ran.
Right, exactly. It's one thing to be a candidate. It's nothing to actually win and be a legislator and earn your $600 a month.
Right.
And so there's no question that everybody is awake this cycle. Everybody is working this cycle on both sides.
Right.
But there's no question that in our caucus, every single Republican has taken every single race seriously.
So let me ask each of you about the sort of four potential scenarios here, and then I want to get into the specific numbers and specific races. 4 potential outcomes here. One is that the Republicans retain their majority, and it narrows, but they retain the majority. Lose a couple seats, but they're still in the majority position. One is that the Democrats win a narrow majority, just get over the line. Democrats blow out, that's another potential scenario. And here in the bottom corner of this thing is that the Republicans actually pick up seats. Where do you think you land in that?
I mean, personally, I think we retain the majority in the House, and that's strictly because of look where we are in Texas. I mean, we have a record low unemployment. Our economy is booming. We still have 1,000 people minimum moving here every single day. When I first ran in 2012, I was talking about the 25 million people that were living in Texas. Now we're approaching 30 million people coming to Texas. What we're doing is right. People want to come here. People want to live here.
Yeah.
And it's because of the policies that we're passing up in the pink.
So the facts on the ground, issues in play, work to your advantage. You keep the majority and lose a couple, or you keep the majority and widen that majority. What are you prepared to say today?
I believe we keep the majority and widen the majority.
So you think you actually end up net plus seats?
I think Fort Bend County basically set the table for how
we'll come back and dunk on HD 28 in a couple of minutes. Representative Israel, you're not prepared to say we're going to do this. All you want to say is we're in it, and being in it is enough right now.
I'm excited to say that we're going to have general elections, real general elections with real resources, and I'm excited for what that brings. That 1,000 people who are coming here a day they need to. I want them to know that there's some amazing people who are putting their lives on a shelf to run for office. They're veterans. They are single moms, they're professionals, they're established within their community. It takes resources to tell the story. So I'm not speaking on behalf of Celia, I'm speaking on behalf of these campaigns. It helps that I came from a ground game, background. You remember when I was first campaigning, and I want them to have all the resources that they need to tell their story to the electorate, and we'll see what happens on election.
The nature of needing a net 9 to get back the majority means you got to hold yours and you got to win theirs. Will you stipulate, Representative Israel, that there are Democratic seats that are legitimately in play, the possibility of those being lost, or ones that were you all picked up last time that could conceivably flip back?
Well, like my colleague, there's some wonderful freshmen who stuck to their guns, represented their district, and they need to tell that story of what a great job they did. And I am going to make sure that they also have the resources, because if they sit back and don't tell that story about the bills that they passed and the fight, and let's face it, we're all going to take a victory lap on the $6.5 billion that we put in for public ed.
Democrats and Republicans alike.
And Democrats have been hoping that would have happened already.
But my point, Representative Israel, is there were some
tell.
Democrats who won last time in places where it was unexpected. Here I'm trying not to look at Ron Simmons. I told Ron Simmons today that every time I said Beckley, everybody has to drink. There are races in which Democrats unexpectedly won. We woke up the next day to discover that Democrats had won in places where that was not anticipated. Obviously, those are people you need to spend time and money protecting.
Definitely.
And you will play defense in the caucus.
Yeah, it's funny, they call themselves the Flippers, and I think they should form a garage band, because they like to be called the Flippers as a unit.
Right.
And we're going to make sure that they feel supported, protected, that they can tell their story, just as the challengers will as well.
But is that a two-person garage band, or is it the King family? Is it 2 or is it 8 in the Flippers? How many do you think you have to protect? Is it a lot or a little?
I think it's hard to gauge, Evan, because there's some candidates, freshmen, that want to be super sophomores, who are prolific. They get it. They understand all the mechanics. They're doing well. They did better than a lot of us thought they were going to do.
Yep.
Nearly winning by double digits. John Busey comes to mind. He won by, I think, 9 percentage points.
Right.
So they've got a little bit of help, but they're not. The tilling of the soil continues to happen because of the growth that we're all seeing in every corner,
So
whether
it's
dense urban or suburban.
Right.
The growth is real, and to me, that's an opportunity to go tell a story.
Right, but so you will play defense, at least in some
Definitely,
places.
yeah.
Are you playing defense? Despite the fact that you think you're going to pick up seats, there are clearly a number of seats in the last election that were closer than you would have liked, too close for comfort.
But no question about it.
Yeah.
I mean, ask Morgan Meyer if he enjoyed that spread in his race.
Right.
I mean, I honestly didn't believe he was going to win that night.
Right.
So there's no question that, but more as an incumbent, he's playing offense now more than defense.
Right.
But there's no question there are seats we have to defend and seats that we're going to be going after.
Right. Now, Representative Israel, you all, under the guise of the Texas House Democratic Campaign Committee, have put out a list of targeted races.
I haven't seen that.
You've not?
Is my name on there?
If you look down the list, there's
there it is.
There's Goldman right between Buckley and Rainey. So you have put out a list of 22 targeted races. Mm-hmm. And what I think is interesting about this list is you have based the decision to put people on this list not on the outcomes of those races last time, which is to say the Republican members in those races versus their Democratic opponents in 2018, it is more based on the outcome of the U.S. Senate race in those districts. So it's not what was the Democrats' number or what was the Republican incumbent's number, it's what was the Beto number.
It's the potential.
Right. Can you explain the thinking there? Because last time I looked, Congressman O'Rourke is nowhere near the ballot. Why are you basing your decision to put people on the list on the outcome of a race 2 years ago where that person is not on the ballot this time?
It sets a marker for us as Democrats that there's a potential here, but the background behind the potential is an amazing candidate with a good story to tell, who understands how hard it is to win a race and is prepared to do that.
Right.
So none of those are sure bets. I can think of 13 different things off the top of my head that goes into making a good campaign.
Right.
Will that pan out? We're going to do our best to make sure that happens.
So the theory of the case is you had an unusually successful statewide Democratic candidate last time. You had the last gasp of straight ticket voting, right? You had an environment that was very much particular to 2018. You're hoping to replicate that magic in 2020, but without a particularly superlative statewide candidate on the ballot and in the absence of straight ticket voting.
Well, Evan, you're assuming that voters are only going to come out for either a presidential or a Senate superstar.
Right.
I would disagree respectfully.
Yeah.
And say that as a woman who got elected in a ground game in a special election, we worked our butts off.
Yeah.
We knocked on the doors several times before Election Day.
Yep.
So I'm a big believer in ground game, and ground game takes money. It's postage. It's tacos. It isn't sexy. My friend is running for office. She's got a good record of service. She's a veteran of the Iraq War.
Right.
Would you consider voting for her?
Right, but again, you understand, I'll come to Representative Goldman on this because I think he probably has a different view than you do. I'm looking at the numbers you put on this chart. So Sarah Davis is the person at the top of your target list. Sarah Davis won her district in West University Place by 6.5 points last time. But Beto O'Rourke beat Ted Cruz in that district by 21.5 points. There's a 28-point swing. In the Morgan Meyer race that Representative Goldman talked about, he won his race by less than 1 percentage point. Congressman O'Rourke won the Senate race in that district by more than 15 points. In Angie Button's district, also in Dallas County, she won by 2 percentage points. Congressman O'Rourke won that district by more than 12 points. So huge swings.
Yeah.
Again, the conditions on the ground in 2018 different than the conditions on the ground in 2020. You are elevating these and other races to the top of your target list when you couldn't win last time in the best Democratic cycle in a generation in legislative races.
But again, respectfully, Evan,
yes.
These are battlegrounds. And I would say in the year 2020, those challenges are not going to be without resources.
Right.
It's a different ballgame.
So let's come back to resources in a second. Representative Goldman, you are indeed on this list. You're in the bottom half of this list as somebody who won his race. Congressman O'Rourke did not win the Senate race in your district. You won by about 8 points last time, right? Congressman O'Rourke lost that Senate race to Senator Cruz by only 2 points in your district. So it was closer. There was a margin. Do you really consider these races, as you look at it from the Republicans' perspective, to be legitimate targets, seats to defend?
Let me talk about that list in generalities first.
Yeah.
When I first came to the House, there was always an understanding, or an agreement, if you will, that incumbent members don't go after incumbent members. And I, frankly, am disappointed that Celia put out that list.
It's not a rule. It's like the two-thirds rule.
Right.
It's not really a rule. It's a tradition, and anybody can change it at any time.
Celia and I get along very well, and we are friendly.
Yeah.
But to say that I'm disappointed in that list is an understatement, and it's true. Because, like I said, we've always had that understanding that incumbents don't go after other incumbents. Our House Republican Caucus defended our House Republican members the last 2 cycles. We've never proactively gone after an incumbent Democrat. I don't know what we're going to do this cycle. We haven't met to decide how we're going to spend our money.
Well, it sounds to me like you're disappointed in the Democrats. Therefore, you're going to leave Beckley and Kalani alone. It sounds like. Just to be consistent.
I think there's a tape recording to that effect.
I can't speak to how our Republican caucus is going to spend their money.
Right.
Because we haven't made that decision. But I will tell you this, we're raising more money in our PAC we have ever had before.
Is your point that because they won't disarm, you won't disarm, that the rule that was in effect previously now is invalidated because as long as they're going to come after your guys, this, they bring a knife, you bring a gun. This is like Elliot Ness,
when in
right?
past years we haven't had that conversation, we're certainly going to have that conversation this year.
Do you stipulate that people on this list do have serious races that need to be defended?
It goes back to my original statement, Evan, that anytime you have an opponent
Run
on the
like you're
ballot
losing.
against you, you have an opponent.
So there are, of the 22 on the list that the Democrats put out, there are nine of the 22 in which, although the Republican incumbent or the Republican member, because there are a couple that I think, like Steve Allison, who was elected for the first time, where the Republicans held that seat, won that seat, but Congressman O'Rourke won the Senate race in that district. Again, whether that's a good measure or not. Davis, Meyer, Button, Bohack. Bohack won by, a hair's breadth, and he's not coming back. Shaheen, Leach, Miller, Stuckey, Allison. That's their top 9. Those are the ones in which Congressman O'Rourke won the Senate race, even though the Republican won the district. Do those become a priority for you any more than any others? Maybe let me say it that way.
For me personally, well, I've got to defend my own seat first. So that's really where I'm going to be focusing my attention on. I'm going to be campaigning in my district, going door to door.
Right.
We're live streaming. I'd be foolish not to say, you plug the Tribune, www.craiggoldman.org if you want to donate to my campaign.
This is turning into a Democratic presidential
Right,
debate.
exactly.
Everybody say their URL, get it out of the way, and then we'll move on.
I'd be remiss if I didn't do that, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
I have a real campaign. It's on the list.
Well, there it is, right between Buckley and Rainey.
Right,
That's right, exactly.
So I'll be campaigning in my own district,
Right.
and of course I want my friends to win, the Republicans to win. I want to keep and maintain the Republican majority. And yes, as a member of the Republican caucus, I'm going to have a vote of how we spend our PAC money.
And you may well dedicate dollars to the ones you consider to be more challenged.
I think we'll have an idea of what races are the closest and be able to fund them, yes.
Will you try to save people at the end? I had a Republican member tell me a couple of weeks ago, one of the differences between our strategy this time and our strategy last time is that last time we did polling in districts where we should have known late in the game all was lost. And yet we put money into races that we ended up losing and knew we were going to lose, when what we should have done was prioritize those resources in places where we could have actually saved people, as opposed to simply being able to say, we spent money on behalf of X even though it was lost. Are you going to be more strategic in terms of how you spend money?
Well, I think that question goes actually to Celia.
No, I'm actually no.
Because they're the ones who put out an email the day before the Fort Bend County race to say that it was tied.
Let me actually go to the details of this and be specific rather than be general. Should you have spent the money you spent on Tony Dale late in that race, or was that a lost expenditure because that race was not winnable?
Are you asking me?
I am.
I didn't spend that money.
I know, but Republicans did. My question is, will you, in an environment in which you're going to be able to see October 1st, October 15th, which races are winnable and which are not?
It's completely too early to tell that, Evan, and it's going to be taken on a case-by-case basis. Do we have a chance of, I mean, obviously you spend your money wisely, right? I mean, are the National Democrats going to spend the type of money they did on races based on what happened in Fort Bend next cycle?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess
That's
my point is,
if
you have an incumbent Republican who on October 15th, based on the polling that you do or that somebody does and that you believe, who is down by 8 points, are you going to have a hard conversation with that incumbent and say, we cannot save you?
Well, I think that's fair in any race. I mean, the presidential candidate is going through it right now.
They are indeed. Representative Israel, speaking of money, you're going to have a limited amount of money. You may have more than you typically do, but it's going to be finite. Mm-hmm. Are you really wise to spend money on all 22 of these target races as opposed to prioritizing the ones that you can win? Because not every race on this list is winnable by definition.
I think there's races that we can win that there's surprises every election. And there's going to be that candidate that, first of all, at the top of the list, you mentioned several that there's one of the blessings of the success is that we have several Democrats running in the primary.
Right.
So we don't know who the successful Democrat is going to be yet. But that's going to be an indicator of where we spend our resources, because you have someone that is muscled up and has and is a prolific fundraiser and doing really good things on their own. There's different ways in which they need help.
Right.
So it's all going to come together, I think.
It's going to depend upon
post-primary in the summer as everyone's collective efforts are coming together.
The primaries will tell you whether you have the kinds of candidates who you really think you can spend time, energy, and money.
And are they investing in themselves? Are they doing what they need to do, which is basic stuff?
So this is where I begin to dunk on you on HD 28.
Hit it.
My colleague Ross Ramsey, this is the Zerwas district in which there was a special election. As my colleague Ross Ramsey wrote, you all turned a predictable loss into an embarrassing loss. You turned an 8-point race the last time Representative Zerwas, Chairman Zerwas, ran in that district, what was arguably not a winnable race, into a national crusade in which you had presidential candidates trooping down to Fort Bend County, and you turned an 8-point loss into a, well, not you personally, but you in the royal sense, an 8-point loss into a 16-point loss. The Saturday before the election, your candidate, Liz Markowitz, told one of our reporters, "I'm hard-pressed to see how we lose on Tuesday regardless of the outcome." Really? Feels like you guys lost bigger than just by 8 points, and metaphysically more than just actually in that race.
Can I answer?
Please.
Okay.
Go get him.
First of all, I love being referred to in the royal sense.
Royal you. Queen Celia,
That
the monarch.
That pleases me, young man.
Yes.
I always say I wish I was
It's true
queen,
during
queen
session,
of Texas.
too. We have to call her Queen Celia.
Queen Celia.
Exactly. That's,
Yes.
I would love to be queen of Texas. I
Seriously,
say it all the time.
how do you process the result of that race?
If you just look at the mechanics of it, you can't control how sexy Texas is, and you can't control special elections. She had identified, a number of positives. The nationalization of the race was not anything that we could really control.
You didn't solicit the help from people on the outside. Michael Bloomberg just showed up in Fort Bend County.
Queen Celia did not call them down. Let's put it that way.
Right. You wish
But-
they hadn't come?
What pleases me about the outcome of that race is that my Republican friends spent $2 million to defend in Tom DeLay country. It makes me happy when Republicans spend money.
Right.
And
You know what you call a candidate who spends $2 million in Tom DeLay country to keep a seat?
A winner.
Representative.
Yeah.
That's what you
Incumbent.
call him.
a winner.
Yes.
Right.
But I think it was indicative of the energy that we're going to bring throughout the state. So a special election is not a fair characterization of a district. We had 4 days of early voting. Special elections are difficult, but she's in a stronger position to run, and we're going to run just as hard there as we did this time.
Is that going to be any more
not gonna
winnable in November than it was in January?
Yes, sir.
Because presidential
Because
turnout?
it's a regularly scheduled election. We're going to get a full weekend of early voting.
Right. So you only lose by 8 points as opposed to 16?
Man, you can really tell the future, can't you?
Well, I can tell the past.
I don't
I
know.
know what happened in the last race.
I don't know. I don't know. I went to Fort Bend and did some knocking myself, and people can tell you that their district is diverse.
Yep.
But when you talk to a Congolese American and a Turkish American and an African American, they were all very motivated. So mechanically, she's doing everything the right way. And until election night, you don't really know what the outcome is.
Will you
So
keep the presidentials out of that district and districts like that in the fall?
I can't tell people where to go. I really am
yes,
not.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
No, I can't.
Seriously?
I can't. Yes.
Don't you remember Bill White not wanting to meet Barack Obama on the tarmac when he came to Texas during the governor's race because he didn't want to campaign with? You can campaign with or not campaign with anybody you want.
Yeah. My role as chair of HDCC is to support these campaigns and make sure that they are telling their story. I want the amazing resumes that are coming that are being presented to the voters to shine. It should be about that candidate who's been working in that community to say, my name is X, and I'd like to be your representative at the state capitol. That's what it boils down to.
Right. Representative Goldman, isn't Queen Celia right on this?
Well,
A special election is almost always a dumpster fire.
She obviously
And
would have been
a
saying,
regular election is not the same as a special, and you guys who are dancing in the end zone may only be doing it for 5 minutes.
she obviously would have been saying something else had they won.
Sure.
So
But you understand that the fall is a different environment electorally, depending
Every
upon
single
how a
race is
number of
different.
things go than the special
every
election.
single race is different, every single cycle, every single time. There's no question about it. But I think what the people of Fort Bend County realized is the same thing that I'm hopeful the voters in November are going to look at. Look where we are. We're in the greatest state in the nation. We have an economy that is booming. Unemployment, I mean, you really have to work if you're not working. You really have to be working at it. Because, I mean, I passed Charlie Guerin's Railhead, another plug, in Fort Worth right on my way down here is a big now hiring sign. I mean, jobs are plentiful in this state.
Stipulated, people like to eat barbecue in Texas.
Right, exactly. And I guess if you work there, you get free barbecue.
Right, yeah.
But no, I mean, so I think that was kind of are we doing the right thing in Texas or are we doing the wrong thing? And by electing Gary Gates in Fort Bend County and going from an 8-point margin last November to a 16-point margin, the people of Texas saying those are the policies I want to continue to have.
You're getting me where I want this to go next, which is what will be the determining factor in these races, and will that determining factor be the same race to race? Will it be a set of issues? Will it differ from region to region? If you've seen, one way you think about it, if you've seen one legislative race, you've seen one legislative race.
Well, no,
is it a consistent fabric of things that will convey from race to race?
We're a big state, and we have different and diverse areas. I mean, perfect example, I was campaigning for Briscoe County this last weekend down in Deer Park, and Hurricane Harvey was a big issue down there, and Harvey relief was a major issue down there. Well, obviously, it's not that big of an issue in Fort Worth.
Right.
So, of course, because we're so big and so diverse, there are different issues in different areas.
Yeah.
But looking at big picture, what we've done in the legislature, what we've done with the leadership of Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Speaker Bonner in this last session was historical. And if you want to continue on that path, then keep electing Republicans.
So you embrace what happened in 2019 as the roadmap for people keeping you all in the majority?
No question about it.
Representative Israel, is the conversation different in each of the 150 districts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What resonates in one district may not resonate in another district.
Right.
One bio is very different from another bio. These aren't just robots that we're putting in place. These are women and men who are sacrificing right now time with family so that they can run their campaigns right now.
So the issue set is different. The personalities are obviously different because every candidate is different, every incumbent is different, every challenger is different. Are some races intensely local and others are susceptible to being nationalized? I wonder about that because obviously you can't just look at your own race. There are other things on the ballot, including the presidential election, which we'll get to in a second. How much of these elections, Representative Israel, how many will be determined, do you think, locally, and how many will be determined by things out of the control of the people running?
I don't know. You have we have an opportunity this cycle to elevate our game, and so it's not just, of course, the House Democratic Campaign Committee. This is the state party, Annie's List, Planned Parenthood. Everybody is upping their game for victory because in 2018 we had near presidential turnout.
Right.
And
well, in fact, you had a higher turnout in 20. I mean, stay with this for a second.
So if you go fast forward.
Yeah. So 2012, which was the Obama-Romney race, the second Obama election, just under 8 million people turned out to vote in Texas. And that was actually pretty bad nationally as a percentage of the eligible to vote population. We typically down to the bottom.
We had been sneaking up the place.
2014, 4.7 million in the second Obama midterm. So non-presidential year, you went from 8 million to 4.7. And then in 2016, Clinton and Trump, 9 million. And then you expected the turnout, we all expected the turnout to go back down in the midterm, and it was 8.3 million. It was presidential level, actually higher than the 2012 presidential. So you think that actually augurs well in terms of where turnout is heading, and that's an important part of this conversation.
I think the trends are in our favor.
Yeah.
And if you look at the issues that we've been dealing with, we have a good story to tell on the beginnings of investing in public education.
Yep.
We do not have a good story to tell on when it comes to pandering to the radical right within this state and think that that's going to be the way you can shape a state or shape a party. We have spent entirely too much of our time fighting on social issues every session. So I believe that we have a story to tell of mainstream values for every Texas home in 2020. But that's going to be different for every county and every candidate and the skills that she brings to the job. So
you are or are not going to seek to actively tie this election to elections elsewhere, national?
I don't think that's not what I would wish for myself as a candidate.
Yeah.
I'm proud of my record. I'm proud of the record of service that I had in my community, and I want to make sure that these candidates shine, that they tell their own story. They're not telling a presidential story. They're talking about what's happening in Killeen and in Conroe and in Harlingen.
Does it matter to you in your efforts to take back control of the House who the Democratic nominee for president is? Is this one conversation if the nominee is Bernie Sanders, say? Is it another conversation if the nominee is Michael Bloomberg, say? Does the outcome of the presidential nominating process affect your success or failure at your efforts to take back control of the House?
We will adjust no matter who the presidential nominee is.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
We will adjust. The energy that you feel, or that I feel anyway, is going to be there regardless of who the presidential nominee is.
Representative Goldman, would you have a preferred outcome of the Democratic presidential nomination
No,
process?
obviously I don't have a dog in the hunt, Evan.
Yeah.
But I'm watching. I mean, I watched Phil Notch last night too, just being a student of politics and loving watching presidential politics. Frankly, I'm disappointed what happened in Iowa. I think it's bad for us, our society as a whole and for our nation. I'm really sad that was a disaster that it was. And even the Democrats say it was a disaster.
You sound really, really sad.
Well,
as you allow the word disaster to marinate in your mouth like mozzarella in a vinaigrette. Right, yeah.
Democrats' own words, not mine. Just like John Kerry said in Iowa that if Bernie Sanders gets elected, it'll destroy the Democrat Party. Their words, not mine.
Well, he might not have said Democrat, but anyway. Yeah, okay.
So no, obviously it depends who at the top of the ticket is. And I think that does, as we saw in the O'Rourke Cruz race, that does matter. People are going to turn out to support candidates now because we don't have straight ticket voting next session because Ron Simmons passed that bill in the House. We'll see what, no one knows what role, how that's going to matter.
Let me turn it around on you. Is the president at the top of the ticket? He was existentially on the ballot in 2018. He is actually on the ballot in 2020. Does the president being at the top of the ballot help or hurt you? Do you run toward him or run away from him?
Look, being a student of politics and you being a professor of politics. I'm
an easy grade.
He literally is.
That's right, exactly, yeah. Of course the president matters, and of course you run on the condition of the nation at the time. I can't predict the way we're going to be in November, but we're trending. Like I said, what's the number one priority for people is to have a job.
Yep.
And we have record unemployment, not only in the nation, but especially in the state of Texas. Who gets the credit for it? Whether you like it or not, the president always does. When
so
things
he is
were going
an asset,
well, under President Obama, he got the credit for it.
So he's an asset for you and for the Republicans in this election?
I think he's an asset for the nation as a whole.
I didn't ask about the nation. I asked about the Republicans.
Well, in Texas as a whole, based on what we've been able to do with Donald Trump as president, with Greg Abbott as governor, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and Speaker Bonham, based on what we did last session, things are going extremely well in this state, and why would you want to change anything
So
about
the president
it?
calls you in the fall and he says, Representative Goldman, I hear from Representative Israel that you have a tough race. I want to come and campaign in your district. You say, Mr. President, bring it.
Mr. President is always welcome in my district, absolutely.
Is the president an asset for you as you try to take back the House? Do you believe that there is a persuadable case to be made, or a case to be made to the persuadables, leveraging the president in your efforts to take back control of the House?
I still stick by my response to your other question.
Politics is local.
The women and men of each district have got to shine, and any benefit that we may have accrued from Donald Trump happened in 2018, and the folks in my circle are, they're young, they're diverse, they vote, but now they're saying, what else can I do? They are woken up by this president, but that doesn't mean that these women and men are running against the president. They're running to get something done for Texas.
So you've actually answered a question I wanted to ask both of you, and that is, what do you think happened in 2018, and was 2018 the beginning of the new normal? Or was it an outlier, a unicorn election? That really is, in some ways, one of the most important things to ask.
You mean the turnout in Texas?
Well, just the outcome
cool.
and the turnout and kind of the entirety of the cycle. Was that an aberration? It was certainly an aberration compared to the last several cycles, right?
Yeah.
But I think people are wondering, is 2018 the way it's going to be now forever, or was 2018 just a perfect storm of things? And 2020 is going to return to something that looks more predictable in Texas. You're banking on the fact that it was the beginning of the new normal.
It makes me happy when people vote.
Yeah.
It makes me happy when people are paying attention to the government that affects their daily lives.
Yeah.
So I hope this is the beginning of a trend, and all indicators from others are that we are trending in an upward direction.
Yeah.
And that's good for all of us.
Representative Goldman, you know what happened last time. Democrats turned out more people than they have done in my lifetime in this state, which is now almost 30 years. Beto O'Rourke got more than 4 million votes on the Senate in the Senate race, more votes than any Democrat in the history of Texas. Took 12 seats back from the House, not historic, but nearly historic. Won 2 seats in the Senate. Except for Governor Abbott, the statewide margins were 5 points or less. A very unusual election in the modern era of Texas. but do you think it can be replicated, or was it an aberration?
Well, I think it can be replicated, and that's why the onus is on us, especially those of us on the ballot in November, to take it seriously of what happened last cycle and not to be. I admit I was a little lazy last cycle and have been the last 2 cycles.
Yeah.
I've taken my. Well, let's put it this way. I need to be out working when I'm on the ballot, and I will be.
Yeah. The turnout last time that I alluded to earlier, 8.3 million presidential year, or even a little bit better in the case of 2012 than presidential year turnout. High turnout is bad for any party in power, is it not? Because who turns out to vote? Again, I'll quote my friend Ross, anger is a greater motivator than joy at election time.
Well, but like
the people
I said,
who turned out last time were not happy, they were pissed off.
But like I said a little earlier, there were 25 million people living in the state of Texas 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Now we're approaching 30 million. Just by the natural growth in this state, you're going to have more people turn out to vote.
Yeah, but if that turnout at a higher level last time were good for you, you wouldn't have lost 12 seats. You wouldn't have lost 2 in the Senate. You wouldn't have had the statewide margins be as close as they were. The people who largely turned out, again, Representative, we think, in the last election, in greater numbers, were at least 3 groups of people: women, young people, and people of color. And as the statistics indicate, those groups where they turned out more largely turned out for Representative Israel's team and not.
Well, and to that point, I mean, let's be very clear. Who really knew where Beto O'Rourke stood on an issue until he ran for president? I mean, y'all were covering riding a skateboard in the Whataburger parking lot and thought that was great.
Hold
so,
on.
Let me
matter?
finish.
He ran an election based on personality and was successful.
I get that.
Yeah.
But now that we know where he stands on the issues and he went campaign in Fort Bend County, how good did that do?
Whose fault is it that nobody knew where he stood on the issues? Us or Senator Cruz?
No, I'm not. Look, I put blame all around. I mean, that's exactly right.
I want to ask, again, with regard to 2018, geography. So we're talking about, well, this will be different next time than last time. I wonder if the geographic aspect of this is not already baked into the cake. Dallas County and Harris County, and in fact the urban counties generally, are trending bluer. In fact, you and I talked yesterday about the fact that Tarrant County, Obama lost Tarrant County twice. Hillary Clinton lost Tarrant County. Beto O'Rourke won Tarrant County. Justin Nelson was here a hot minute ago. Justin Nelson beat Ken Paxton in Tarrant County, right?
Greg
Tarrant County,
but Greg Abbott won Tarrant County.
Understood, but Tarrant County for years has been the most conservative large county in the country, except last time Beto O'Rourke and Justin Nelson won Tarrant County. So the urban counties are blue, the non-urban areas are red, but the suburbs are beginning to be in flux. Morgan Meyer last time won by 440 votes out of 78,000 cast. Angie Button won by 1,100 votes out of 53,000 cast, both in Dallas County. Dwayne Bohack, who again is not on the ballot this time, won by 47 votes out of more than 48,000 cast in Dallas County and Harris County. I am tempted to say that, at least in the case of Meyer and Button, who are on the ballot this time, they should be updating their LinkedIns based on geography.
No, totally.
How do you run against the urbanization and the trend politically in this
Perfect
town?
example. Just like Celia wants to tell her story, it's on us to tell our story. And like I said, we had a historical session led by the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker, all Republicans.
Right.
More money for public education. And it takes that leadership in order to get this done. A couple of sessions ago, Joe Strauss came into the Republican caucus and said, we're going to solve water, we're going to solve transportation. Go to work. And the chairman of those committees went to work, and those committees went to work, and we got it done for the benefit of Texas. This session, the big 3 said, we're going to solve property tax reform, and we're going to have education reform.
Right.
And they led on that, and we did it. And everybody went to work. And Dan Huberty went to work and passed a historical education reform bill.
Yep.
So we have to tell our story as Republicans in our districts of what we've accomplished as leaders in this state.
Including in districts that are increasingly harder for Republicans to win because population trends mean that in those urban counties, Republicans have a bigger rock to push up a bigger hill.
Yeah, but Evan, I went and knocked on doors for Briscoe Kane this last weekend. If you knock on someone's door and tell your story and tell people what you're doing for them, you get an incredible response. And throw party affiliation out the door.
Deer Park ain't Highland Park, though, Representative. Right?
There weren't many mansions down there
No,
in Deer
no,
Park
there were
like
not.
I've seen in Highland Park. That's correct.
Representative Israel, what happened in the suburbs last time? I note with some interest Denton County, Collin County, Williamson County. Goodness gracious, Lupe Valdez beat Greg Abbott in Hayes County, right? I mean, I realize it was all the Bolsheviks on the Texas State campus coming out. That's what happened. But Hayes County voted for Lupe Valdez for governor, right? What is going on in the suburbs, and what does that tell you about this next election cycle?
The growth, you're telling a story that is, it's a story about affordability. It's a story about diversity. There's young people in my life that are Latinos, engineers, nurses, professionals.
Yep.
They can't afford to live in the urban core. They're buying in the outer ring. They are awoken. They are voting, and they don't want to. They want to know, what else can I be doing?
Yeah.
So that what we saw in 2018 was, in my view, it was is just a snapshot of what we're going to be seeing in 2020, and it's a presidential year. So unfortunately, the people think the presidential voting matters more. You layer on top of that we're not going to have straight ticket voting.
Right.
So it's more incumbent upon us as the House Democratic Campaign Committee to make sure that our candidates are telling their story, because you can't just go in and knock it all out.
Isn't that bad for you not to have straight ticket voting? I mean, the straight ticket voting in the last election was your magic beans. You have no beans this election, right?
I wasn't sure about it and how it would work out.
Ask former Representative Simmons. He may have a point of view.
You might have a view now.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's going to help us if what I'm trying to do is say, you know, Kiki Williams is running in the Killeen area.
Yeah.
African American, 24 years of service.
This against Buckley in the old ACOC district. Is that the one?
Yes. Yeah. She has a wonderful story to tell. She's been immersed in her community.
Right.
I don't wish ill upon my Republican colleagues. I do wish, and these.
You just hope I'm home next session.
No, these agreements that were made were good old boy agreements made in a back room that I was not invited to.
What agreements?
About the old understanding about we don't go against Republican incumbents. The House Democratic Campaign Committee has always protected our incumbents and worked on growing our numbers.
Yeah.
This is a presidential year. We see an opportunity, and we're going to make sure that our candidates are telling their story. And in those races that we nearly won, those Democrats who nearly won were outspent 10-1. So ultimately, I just want the voters to make a decision and be presented with some quality people, and they're going to have some decisions.
Representative Goldman, I want to come back to the straight ticket thing, but you've said a couple of times, the tradition was we didn't go after incumbents. I mean, look, let's be honest about this. If you have the majority, it is easy to say we don't need to go after incumbents.
You're in the minority.
If you're in the minority, the only way the math works is if you go after incumbents. Well, wouldn't you be doing the same thing if you were in the minority?
Look, go ask some of those, as Celia said, some of the good old boys who had the, what do you say, had that agreement behind closed doors. I mean, there were members of the Democratic Caucus who met with the members of the Republican Caucus who had that agreement.
Right.
Obviously, that agreement
you
doesn't
can
exist
count.
anymore.
You know that she can't get 9 pickups unless she beats some of your guys, which means she has to come after your guys. You don't blame her, do you really? It's politics. So is the fact that straight ticket voting is not happening in this cycle versus last cycle good for you all?
I just know this. On that vote, I know some Republicans voted against it, but I know that every single Democrat voted against it. So obviously they didn't want it to happen.
Want to see it go away.
Right.
Right. Well, you can see why. I mean, you all benefited from straight ticket voting for every cycle up until the last one.
Right.
Right?
I mean,
So of course you want it not to have straight ticket voting now.
You know, if we had if we did away with straight ticket voting the way the intentional bill was that we passed out of the House, we wouldn't have had it last cycle, and who knows what would have happened.
We're going to go to questions from the audience in a second. I want to go past the election into January, regardless of the outcome, and I want you to talk about the agenda. Does the outcome of this election ultimately shape the agenda next time or not? The theory of the case in the media, at least, is you went from 95-55 in 2017 to 83-67. You had a narrower partisan split. 95-55, you had what you might describe as more sharp objects on the table in the 2017 session. 2019, sharp objects largely, not entirely, but largely gone. And the theory is a closer election with a narrower partisan split meant Republicans needed Democrats to get stuff done, and therefore we're going to have a session in which we're going to take sanctuary cities, bathrooms, vouchers, to name 3 things that were in play in 2017, not in 2019. We're not going to talk about that stuff. We're going to do the business of the state. We're going to do public ed. We're going to do school finance, and we're going to get the hell out of town. Do you stipulate that the 2019 agenda was because of what happened in 2018 or not?
Oh, absolutely not.
You think not?
No, absolutely not. It was based on the leadership of the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker coming into a room. Look, we still had an 83-67 majority. So, I mean,
Right.
and to that point, Celia will agree. That doesn't necessarily mean you get 100% votes from your caucus.
So why did
That's
you
the most
only-
difficult thing to do.
But why did you only conveniently get serious about school finance after any
wasn't
number of... Well,
conveniently.
but hold on. You didn't... Well, you could have fixed school finance in 2017,
Well, why didn't we fix
2015,
why
2013.
didn't we fix Medicaid last session or the session before?
Because you only have a limited amount of money. The legislature can only do one big thing at a time.
That's exactly, there you go. You just said it. You really have a limited, with truly 3 months of doing the people's work once every 2 years, because we don't do anything in January and February because we're constitutionally restricted from passing any legislation the first 60 days we're here.
So the
we
decision to
really do the
focus-
people's
yeah.
work
Right.
March, April, and May.
So the decision to focus on public education and property taxes, things that are sort of more down the middle, solves the riddle issues, those were not as a consequence of the outcome of the election in 2018.
But absolutely not, because again, it takes a leadership from the top to help define what the issues are going to be. Like I said, when Speaker Strauss came in our caucus and said, we're going to solve water and transportation, he didn't say Medicaid, he didn't say public ed. Those were the 2 big issues that session.
Yeah.
These were the 2 big issues this session: property tax reform and education
And then there'll
reform.
be different
and I'm
issues next
hoping
time,
next
yeah.
session we have to look at healthcare in this state and the rising costs of it. And I hope there's a solution at hand or a way to stop the rising costs of Medicaid in this state.
That's
because
your
it's
pick,
getting
regardless of the outcome.
My
Right.
opinion. We have to talk about it.
Representative Israel, did the 2018 results drive the agenda in 2019?
With also still we have to keep the $6 billion in public ed, and there's major issues still next session based on what we did this last
And
session.
there will be finite amount of money next time, as there is every time. Representative Israel, do you think that the 2018 results drove the 2019 agenda? He says
Definitely.
no.
I
You think yes?
recalibrated the tone and the feel, and I firmly believe that.
Yeah. And so then I guess the extension of that is you think that the outcome of this election will drive the agenda in the 2021 session.
I've been thinking a lot, Evan, about you speak in terms of data and trends, and I'm wondering about the physics of the pendulum of politics. And I remember how painful it was when my party was knocked out of power. It was a wave election. It was the pendulum of politics hurts.
Right.
And there's something to be said for just the inertia and the demographic trends of what's happening in this state, and you can only fight against it for so long. And yes, public education was our priority, but why did we have to have a painful, fake argument about religious freedom on the House floor? That's not what I'm about.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking not just on my behalf, but on behalf of my colleagues who want to get things done on criminal justice reform, on Medicaid expansion. We couldn't even get a bill to the floor that said, let's take Medicaid expansion to the voters and see what they think, the Utah version. There's so much good things that we can get done, and my Democratic colleagues are hungry and motivated to take the reins.
All right, let's go to questions for the balance of our time. Goodness gracious, look at this. We may be here till 9 tomorrow. Malu, it's on you. You pick.
That's not fair. That was very, very brave of you.
Hey, into the crucible, right? That's how this
All
goes.
right. Once again, thank you for having a session that makes it worth getting out early when it's cold and
you.
rainy.
Yes.
Excuse me, my name is Becky Taylor, and I would love to have you do a slightly deeper dunk on demographics. I think I heard you say 1,000 people a day. If I do the math, that means that since the last election, 700,000 new folks are here. I'd love to know
Really, it's half that, just to be fair to
where are
both
they
these
going?
folks. Half of them are births over deaths. Half of them is actually in migration.
Okay, so I'd love to
So
do a little
350,000.
deeper dunk. And in the context of that, one observation that I would like to share in the context of demographics is that I've recently become a landowner in Blanco County. And I have started attending the Liberal Ladies' Lunch. And apparently, anecdotally, 4 times as many people are showing up for that as 2 years ago and more.
Let me ask you to go
So-
to your question just in deference to everybody.
Is that way?
Yeah. So So what's the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, the question is, what do you expect, where are these people going from a demographics perspective, and how do you expect them to vote?
Well, it depends on their income. I'm a realtor, so it hurts my heart to tell my clients, drive until you can afford it. And that's the reality in Texas. So I don't know the demographic split, but generally we are a young state and we are a diverse state. And
In fact, 1 out of every 3 eligible voters in the next statewide elections in 2022 will be under the age of 30. I mean, I do think that age is often something we don't talk about as much as the other.
If you go talk to or go to the website of the state demographer, it's the most interesting presentation you'll ever see. I know he's been going around with the redistricting committee hearings that are going around the state. I think some of them are online. You can go review them. But a presentation from the state demographer is one of the most interesting presentations you'll ever listen to in your entire life. And it's because people are moving here from all over the nation. They're moving here from California. They're moving here from Illinois. They're moving here from New York. And you have to assume it's based on those policies of those states that they're doing that. I mean, when you're getting taxed completely on every single thing in the state of Iowa because they're in major debt. I mean, we live in the great state of Texas where we have no state debt. We balance our budget every single session.
Required by the Constitution.
But we do it.
But
Illinois doesn't do it, and they tax their people and tax their people and tax their people to continue to pay for these policies that they can't keep up.
Right.
And so the people forced to leave the state. New York, California are going to lose congressional seats after the next census because too many people are leaving the state. Charles Schwab just moved their national headquarters from San Francisco, California, to North Texas.
So you think they'll lose congressional seats, we'll pick up congressional seats?
Yeah,
So you're committing to spending money on the census then?
I'm committing money. I'm spending money.
That was me removing the manhole and ushering you into it. I don't know if you noticed that.
Because of Celia's list, I'll be spending money in my district on my reelection campaign.
Okay, good. Let's go to Molly, can we go to the front right here, and then we'll go right here. Yes.
Hi, I just went from an employee to now I'm a business owner. Do we understand how many benefits? Usually business owners don't pay taxes. Don't you see that as an entitlement? And we are trying to restructure Medicaid, Medicare. I mean, I kind of say that's shame on us that we have leaders that have never paid taxes, and we have employees paying more taxes than your actual business owners.
Do we have an issue, Representative, with businesses not paying taxes?
Well, no, we don't. Again, the policies we've set in the state, that's the reason the Charles Schwabs in this nation are moving here. We have companies moving here from California every single day because of the policies that we have in this state. Because we're a low tax state and we do tax businesses to an extent with the margins tax that we cut 2 sessions ago. We didn't do away with it, but we cut it. But those are the policies, those pro-growth, pro-economic policies that are bringing people here. And if you start taxing businesses, what's going to happen? Who's going to end up paying? You are. The general public, because all business is going to do is pass on that tax to the consumer. That's the nature of doing business. You're a business owner. You have to make money, right? Well, if you can't make money and you get charged a tax, if the state comes in and charges you a tax on your business, how are you going to pay for that? You're going to end up charging the consumer for whatever. What's the business that you're in? Global consulting. Okay. We're probably not going to tax your business.
Let me ask Representative Israel on the tax question. We are having a conversation about taxes in the presidential race, at least, and it's filtering down, whether we should be taxing business more, should we be taxing rich people more to fund things that would benefit, the theory goes, a broader swath of the population. Will your party, will your candidates be campaigning on a wealth tax or on removing tax breaks for businesses that may be no longer needed, loopholes in the tax code that would require businesses to pay more? Is that a good look for your candidates or your party in the fall?
No, the issues that I'm hearing are more about the bipartisan agreement that we have for closing the loopholes on background checks, for example, public safety, gun safety.
Bipartisan agreement meaning people in polls, not bipartisan agreement in the legislature.
Exactly, exactly. Back to my argument, it's going to be a good thing to have real general elections so that our candidates are, I'm hearing about healthcare, and I'm hearing about public safety, and we can't expect that when when we have a good year that we put money into the public education system, that then we're off the hook. That's going to be our continual. If we want to continue to have these good economic times, we've got to continue to invest in education. So these are ongoing issues.
You got one here, Malo? Is that okay? Right here in the front. Ma'am?
Well, I think I heard you say, Representative Goldman, that your top priority as a Republican is cutting Medicaid. And as a mother,
I didn't say
No, I
that.
don't know that
I
I-
didn't say that.
In fairness, I'm not
did
sure
not
that I
say
heard him
that.
say
No,
that
I did
either.
not say that's my top priority.
Yeah.
well, as a mother of a severely disabled son, I'd
Yeah, I
like
didn't
to
say
know
that.
what exactly how you're saving those Medicaid dollars, and doesn't that impact us and hospitals
Yeah,
and
I
local
did
communities?
not say that.
Yeah.
You absolutely misheard me if that's what you thought you heard.
Well, that's what I
So
thought
what
I
is
heard.
what is
so
your
how
view?
Are you going to
So
do that?
let's make the question broad. What is your view on
Well, and it is
on
broad
Medicaid
because there
and what
is
the
no
state
right.
should
There
do?
is no this. Look, the easy answer is, if there was an easy answer, it would have been solved by now. I mean, there is no easy answer, right? And this is part of the discussion the whole nation is having on Obamacare, on Medicaid, on Medicare. It's a general question we're having in the United States, and we are in Texas as well. I'm just saying, if we continue on this current path, we're going to bankrupt the state. We can't afford to stay on this current path of funding Medicaid the way we do now, because we do have expansion to a certain extent. More people are getting on Medicaid than they have in the past.
Right.
And in different programs, okay? Programs have been growing. So if we continue on this path, we will bankrupt the state. We just passed a budget, $280 billion budget last session. 72+% of it went to healthcare and education before we do anything else. So again, with more people moving here, we're going to need more money to fund education, and more people get on Medicaid.
So the question is,
It's
who
just
should
the
pay
nature of economics.
Do this as a practice run for your healthcare session in 2021.
Okay.
Who should end up paying for that? Yes, healthcare costs are going up, stipulated. Population is growing, greater needs, stipulated. We don't adequately fund healthcare in Texas to the degree every 2 years that we have to come back and do a supplemental in the session following. And I saw yesterday, although it's dead on arrival, as all presidential budgets are, President put out a budget proposal yesterday that cut the social safety net, including Medicaid. He's proposing cuts at the federal level to the amount of money spent on this stuff. So what do we do? In the absence of those dollars being deployed for those purposes, what is your solution?
Well, that's just it. You can't point to something and say, here's our solution. Yep. You need to bring in the experts, the people who are in the field, bring them in, just like they did what the big three did on education reform and property tax reform. We didn't know what the bill was going to look like the very first day. They didn't know what the bill was going to look like the very first day.
In fairness, there was an interim committee studying the public school finance stuff, which there is not on healthcare during this interim.
Well, I
guess there is a committee on healthcare costs.
Exactly.
There is the Dr. Bonin is leading a committee on healthcare costs.
Correct.
True.
And so all those discussions will be had in the interim. And then hopefully the leadership next session will say, we have to do something about it this session, and bring in the experts and bring in the testimony. And that's where you, the general public, come into play, because if you haven't taken part in a hearing, in a committee, do so. Get involved. It's one of my biggest complaints back in my district. When people complain to me, I said, well, did you come down and testify? Because we didn't hear from you. So go visit your state representative. Come let us know how you feel and how you're affected by these programs. Right. And if what did you say, your son or daughter is your son? If he's not getting the help that he needs, come tell us so we can do something about it.
Queen,
and I would like it too.
Queen Celia, will you work with Representative Goldman on the?
She doesn't want me back. I'm on the list.
In fairness,
how is she supposed to work with
that
me?
was kind of a sick burn, actually. Come on, I mean,
she doesn't want me back. How does she want to work with me? She doesn't want me here.
Assuming you are unsuccessful and he gets back to the legislature, will you work with him on health care?
Of course. I want all of my Republican friends to know that there is a hunger for real reform and real discussion on weighty issues, and us stop beating each other up on social issues. Texas has so much potential.
Yep.
And I'm doing what I'm doing, which is hard, right? It's not fun to put myself out here and say we're going to flip the House and we're going to take on these guys and gals. I do it because I love Texas, and I have high expectations for this state, much higher than what we have.
Yep.
So it is difficult, but after the election, we will all come together and see what the voters have given us and work on the state that we love. And in the tradition of the House, we will work together.
Yep.
And I say this and if you don't know this, I do say this in every single meeting I ever go to, anytime I speak to a group. The good news is we are not Washington, D.C., okay? We're here for a limited time. We still have the system set up by our founding fathers. Celia and I do actually get along, even though she doesn't want me back next session. And we do. The Republicans and Democrats do get along for your behalf. We do work together because we have to.
Right.
We're here for like I said, in reality, 90 days with the ability to get things done on your behalf. And we have to get along, we have to compromise, and we have to work together for the benefit of the Texans.
I have to end on an upbeat note. It is past 9, I'm afraid, and I promised everybody they would go at 9 o'clock. Please give Representative Goldman and Israel a big hand. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you again. Great. Good job.
Thank you.
You know, you put out a chart. You own the chart, I guess, right? That's how
I know.